I think we're at a real inflection point when it comes to the urgency of social problems. So now we're seeing a great convergence happening with corporations who see it not as doing good things and giving back to their community, but seeing a sense of urgency with their lines of business, with their supply chain, that they need water, they may need, access to these, incredible resources that the earth is providing. So there is a convergence between corporate, government, and the social sector that's really exciting because there's a sense of urgency, and sadly it's because there's so many grave problems that we all have to be working together to solve. No one sector is going to do it on their own. We're seeing that happen. So we're seeing when a really good innovation arises, and that for us, we have the perspective that social entrepreneurs are providing those just groundbreaking innovations. When we see that, partner with a corporation that applies that innovation in their supply chain, and then a government can put regulatory policies in place that help accelerate that, we see great, tremendous social progress happen. It's exciting. We see social entrepreneurs struggle with sustainability just like an entrepreneur does, and in some cases it's not just the financial component, it's the sustainability from constituent involvement or partnerships with government or corporations. So again, by design, they have to be working with a lot of partners in order for their innovation to really scale. They don't, go in a room or a design lab and come up with a great product and then launch it and then it's out in the world. So for us, sustainability is key, and it requires a different mindset from the beginning. That's much more mindful of scale and adaptability and the kinds of different funding mechanisms that can be accessed, which is a real challenge right now. I think there's a lot of opportunity right now to look at more creative ways to fund social entrepreneurs. I say that because, you have traditional philanthropy, foundations that typically give grants to nonprofits who are doing phenomenal work. Those grants may last a period of a couple years. They may be renewed. So these grants are usually given for a period of time. It may be 3 years. It may be renewed after that time. But it's a designated period of time, and there's an agreed upon set of metrics that the organization is on the hook to achieve. And that may work really well for a short period of time. Then, once that grant period ends, that social entrepreneur or nonprofit has to start all over again and be continually looking for new funding. And it may not be from, at a foundation may have a different approach, may have different metrics, may have different reporting mechanisms. So it becomes really challenging if you're a social entrepreneur CEO going out to try to raise money for your sustainable organization when you're having to wear different hats, having to constantly adjust your internal processes to map to the foundation or to the funder. And that's different than the for-profit sector usually works. And it's always a challenge to raise money. But in the social sector, I think there's a huge opportunity for us to look at how we do that differently. Instead of saying, oh, we're only a nonprofit or this is only a for-profit, again, this social entrepreneurship hybrid in the middle can be, we may be able to do program-related investments. We may be able to do loans at lower interest rates that gives the nonprofit or the social entrepreneur much more flexibility in how they work their financial plans. We can also look at possibly for-profit investments if there's a hybrid model where they might have a technology that's really exciting that should fund and could be offered to the public that could fund the nonprofit side of what they're doing and their innovation. So for us at the Skoll Foundation, we kind of consider ourselves vehicle agnostic. A grant is at the end of the day a vehicle. A program-related investment or a loan is a vehicle, and a for-profit impact investment is a vehicle. What we like to think about is where is the social impact? Like where do we see the impact at the end of the day, and what's the right financial vehicle that can help get us there, and really try to be creative about how we approach that. One of the most frustrating things that we see as a pattern, so we have 87 organizations working in 130 countries, and the CEOs, the probably number one pain point for them is how much time they have to spend pitching or fundraising. It's really challenging because what we call operating support or flexible spending is so small. It's probably 10% of, if that, of what the foundations end up funding or philanthropists fund. So that flexible, open, unrestricted funding, which really is what builds their capacity, which allows them to do research and development and create new avenues or just new innovations, is really limited, and they end up having to get restricted funding or specific grants that only allow for one particular program, and that becomes a really frustrating process for them to grow their business. Social entrepreneurs are very creative, and I think there's a wide range of how they get funded. So most of the time it's the traditional route of going to a philanthropist or to a foundation and seeking that initial early stage funding. So whether that's a grant, whether that's a loan, but many of the social entrepreneurs have used their own personal equity. They've, again, mortgaged their homes. They've sold businesses to start their organizations. They've partnered with other organizations to say, okay, how can we share resources while they incubate and get bigger? So they're very adaptive, very scrappy. They have a high ingenuity to get the resources they need when they need them. But overall, there's still this big gap that we see. So while they may start in a real scrappy way, they have, again, enough knowledge and enough perseverance and enough business acumen that they can see where they're going and what they need. So in our experience, the social entrepreneurs are very savvy financially. They understand that the cost effectiveness of what they're offering does have value to people, and how they are able to then find the right people to which that value represents dollars and funding. In the early stages anyway, we see that being a strength of the social entrepreneur that's a little bit unique from just maybe a traditional nonprofit who starts a business that's been going over time and has a traditional group of funders or a board that funds them and grows from there. Social entrepreneurs tend to start in a bit different way. We consider ourselves, at least at the Skoll Foundation, more mezzanine level investors. So for us, we like to be at that place where there is proof, there is some traction that an organization and some initial funding that they've achieved, so they're not starting from ground up. So for us, we like that next phase where they have some data, some research that hopefully we can help them really scale and be that J-curve or that inflection point. It's not always the case. So for us, when there's really compelling evidence that a particular innovation or an issue is really ripe for change, we may take the leap and go earlier stage. A recent example is an organization called Girls Not Brides that works to end child marriage globally. And they were awarded the Skoll Award last year, and it was a real debate in our organization because they had just formed. They were a coalition of 300 organizations working globally, but they hadn't necessarily been an organization that had all their funding. They hadn't been around a long time. They were pretty brand new. They were kind of incubated for a few years and were just getting started. But we said the issue of child marriage is so ripe. And the Millennium Development Goals had called child marriage as an issue that had to be more focused on. And we said, you know what, we're going to take this risk and bring them into the portfolio and fund them, even though they are earlier stage than most of the other organizations, because this inflection point, just like landmines might have been in the 20 years ago, we feel like child marriage can be solved and should be solved and has an opportunity over the next 10 to 20 years. I'll share a story of our own experience. So our investment firm that invests Jeff's money, Capricorn Investment Group, that we work very closely with, we are on the foundation side. They are on, what would be considered the for-profit traditional side. And recently the CEO said, laid down the gauntlet of they believe they're going to deliver more social impact over time than even the foundation. So now we have an internal competition going, which is really healthy and really fun. But they absolutely believe that, and they have proof that the investments they're making, again, whether it's solar, renewables, biofuels, et cetera, will have for-profit returns equal to the market, and actually, and on top of that, be social impact driven. So we're excited about what we can prove over time.